joining us today for another episode of What's Your Why Wednesday. I am here with the lovely Catherine Hall. She is the Executive Director at National Association of FHA Consultants and the creator of Genesis203k.net. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. And, the majority of us came into our wonderful industry by accident, but we stay in this industry because it's tied to our personal and professional why. So, Catherine, please share with us, what is your why?
Well, first of all, Laura, thank you so much for the honor to speak with you today and to share my small story about how I feel I have a role and a mission when it comes to helping people experience the American dream of homeownership. And in a nutshell, that is my why. My purpose in life is also the mission of my association, the National Association of FHA Consultants. Our mission is purely my personal goal to rebuild neighborhoods one home at a time. I started this industry over almost 30 years ago as a home inspector and owning of a home inspection company. But my experience with home ownership goes back to when I was a small girl. My father worked for the City of Philadelphia Department of Licensing and Inspections. I would drive through the city with him and see homes in such poor condition and people living in such depressing and disheartening lives. And I asked him, why do they live this way? Why don't they take care of their homes? And my father said to me something that impacted me for the rest of my life. He said, when you are struggling every day just to be able to put food on the table, you do not have any energy to do anything else. And I wondered, well, what can we do to help lift their lives? And I always believe that the two worst things in life is for a person to enter the world badly or leave the world badly. Mm-hmm. And home ownership is so critical to just being born and leaving this life. Your home is where everything ties in.
Yep.
I remember once I did a home inspection, and a matter of fact, it's interesting because when I was, preparing to talk to you, I pulled out some old articles of newspaper articles that I was written up in and things. And there's an article going back to 1996, where I talk about the fact that I did an inspection of the home. There was a hole in the waste pipe visible in the basement. When I touched the awning on the porch, it literally crumbled in my hands. And I just felt so inadequate as a home inspector, just saying, here's your problems, have a good day. I needed to do more. It just wasn't enough for me. So that's when I developed my skill as a renovation consultant, as a 203k consultant, because I knew that as a rehab consultant, helping people get renovation mortgages, I was going to give them the ability to go beyond just information. I was going to be able to give them tools to correct these problems and have the money to do it built into the loan. So right. It truly, as a renovation consultant, I am able to live every day through the experiences and support I give and my association gives to consultants around this wonderful country, the ability to rebuild neighborhoods one home at a time.
That's fabulous. And I love that. And that is your why. I mean, it so ties beautifully together. And I love that what you said was, I saw something and I did something, right? You didn't just say it and say, oh, this is my part of the job. This is what I need to do. You said, no, now that I've seen this, I need to do something more. I need to see what further I can do to make this contribution, to make a difference in these neighborhoods and with these families. And that actually leads me to my next question, and my most favorite question that I love to hear the answer to. So Catherine, that's one example, right? That article in 1996, that was kind of like a pivotal moment. But give me one of those stories. I know you have tons of them, but give me one of those stories where you realized the actual monumental impact that you have by the work you do. Maybe it ties to your association, maybe it ties to a family. Give us one of those stories.
I think the most impactful story that I have is actually quite recent. I could tell you stories, and I have letters from people thanking me for helping them buy homes and having them rehabbed. I think, but the most impactful story, is a recent story. I did a real estate agent training with one of our members. He has a home inspection and consulting firm in Jacksonville, Florida. He asked me to come speak to a group of real estate agents. So we did a 4-hour training, and I'm talking about how rehab loans can help a buyer buy a home that in a neighborhood that they want to be in, but the quality of the homes that are there are not good homes for mortgages. And I gave this class, and this agent came up to me and said, I had no idea this existed. I have a buyer who I've been trying to help buy a home for 18 months, and they could never qualify because all the homes are either cost too much money or they would go off the market too fast. This is such a great way for me to help this person buy a home for his family. They're living with their mother. They have 2 kids. They're crammed into a 2-bedroom house. She went on and on about this story. Well, I got an email from her about, I'd say 3 weeks ago, with a picture of her and this couple in front of their house. It had not yet been renovated, but they made closing. And thanks to the 203K loan, they bought a house 2 blocks from their mom in a nice neighborhood, but this house was not nice. They got it for a price they could afford. The rehabs were built in, and this agent was able to take care of this family in such a way that she felt good, the family felt good, and I felt good just because of a 4-hour class. That was me impacting, and basically, 7 degrees of separation? You never know how far your reach touches. So now I've shown this family how they can have a home ownership experience. Who knows who else in their life they'll share that opportunity with? And where will they now go as homeowners? Because just being a homeowner gives such a sense of pride and respect for many people in communities today.
Absolutely. I love that story. That is fabulous. And you're right. It's funny. Sometimes, especially people like us that have been in the industry for a long time, sometimes you take it for granted that you think that everyone knows about these programs, right? And we just assume because we've been doing 203K since the 90s. So to us, it's like, oh, everybody. No, don't assume that. Because there's many people, including realtors, including loan originators, including lots of companies that maybe they're still thinking doing a 203K is like the 90s, where the papers was this high and it was so complicated. It's not like that anymore. Yes, there is a process flow, but just like everything else, it's, you just go through the steps and everything's fine. And you just make sure you work with the people that understand the program. But Catherine, number one, for everyone listening to this, if you are not an expert in renovation, you need to be one, because that example that Catherine gave, look at that. We know how competitive the market has been. We know how these poor families that are just exhausted, losing bids and not finding homes, they need to be homeowners. And to your point, Catherine, I always think about this. When someone becomes a homeowner, it's not just them. Their children that come into a family where they've lived in a home that the parents owned. When they grow up, they're going to also own a home because that's just normal. That's just what happens, right? They know they're going to go to school and get a job and save and get that home because that's what happens. Generational wealth is built. So Catherine, you didn't just change the lives of that one family. You've changed multiple generations to come. And that is the power of what we do in this wonderful industry. I love that.
Yes,
love it.
absolutely.
All right. So now, speaking of changing lives, so Catherine, we certainly always encourage new people to come into the industry. And we hope that some of the people listening right now are newer to our industry. And I'd love to hear, give that piece of advice. What do you recommend to someone that is newer to this industry, especially tied to your expertise? I'd love to hear of what advice would you provide to them?
I think the most impactful piece of advice I would give to anyone entering the home ownership industry as a mortgage originator, a loan broker, a real estate agent, a processor, a home inspector, any of us coming into this industry, don't put limits on yourself. Don't put yourself in a box and say, this is all I can do. Always look beyond your current activities to say, what more could I be? And then, in order to be able to have no limits, never limit who you connect with. Always be trying to add more people to your network, to your base of referral partners, your base of influencers, your mentors, your coaches. Be as well connected as you possibly can in fields and areas that are not exactly inside your specific niche. Step outside of your comfort zone and take the limits off of what you can do, and the possibilities for your success will be endless.
That is very true. And I have to, at that moment, I have to actually share the story of how we met, because it really ties into exactly what you said. So I was speaking at the Housing Wire annual event last August, and Catherine was in the audience. Catherine came to speak to me afterwards, and we connected. And now here we are almost a year later, right? We are just about a year later, and Catherine now has come into other groups that I'm part of and has attended other events. And she has absolutely expanded her sphere of influence, right? And I've watched you grow, and I've watched you just morph and evolve and continue to challenge status quo. And so you are a perfect example of that, of continuing to just network and grow and expand and meet more people and push your mission forward. So
yeah, and it can be difficult. It's not always comfortable. It's very interesting to be the only home inspector or the only renovation consultant in a room full of mortgage lenders, because they ask you, well, what company are you with? Well, I'm a rehab. What are you doing here? So you've got to be willing to be a little uncomfortable sometimes, until they realize that, oh, you have the same goal as I do, to help more people get homes. And, oh, you want to help me make more mortgages? Let's talk. So be willing to feel that sense of uncomfortableness, of being a little isolated sometimes, but go beyond that, and it will be so amazing for you. I cannot even begin to say what, and to be honest, I almost accosted you in the hallway. So
I remember.
ran you down. Okay. And again, like you said, I actually went to Housing Wire, and then I went to the 2020 Vision Summit.
Yes.
And I've been working with Christine Beckwith, and I'm actually working with other mortgage associations now. And like you said, I just assumed everybody knew what I know and what is in what I eat, sleep, and drink. They don't. So thank you so much for you saying yes to me when I said, hey, can I get your business card and can I call you? You said yes.
Yes, I did. And I love to say yes, of course. And I believe that our industry is all intertwined, to your point, right? And that we all can learn and grow and continue our own missions together. And that's the beauty of it. And that's actually where What's Your Why came from, is that I love our industry so much, and I continue to, it just brings me joy to spotlight wonderful people and what they're doing in our industry, because we all can grow and be better every single day together. So absolutely. Catherine, thank you so much for sharing everything. Keep moving forward. You keep making 1 inch at a time, right? Every day. And we'll see you next time. All the best.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for saying yes.
My pleasure.